Hello students, I am Dr. Aruna Mohan from University of Delhi, and in this session we shall discuss skeletal system. You are aware of the fact that any movement or locomotion involves muscles and bone. We have already discussed about the muscle. Now we are discussing about the bones. You can imagine how important the skeletal system is for us. We have particular shape of the body because of bones. Also, we are able to move about and do so many kinds of things we want to do. Imagine walking without leg bones, or writing without hand bones, or turning neck without neck bones. That means each bone in our body is important and it helps in functioning along with the muscular system of the body. The bones, normally they have hard matrix because the structure of bone is such that it has osteocytes which have calcium deposits. One more time I would like to remind you that to have strong bones we must have good amount of calcium in the body, which we have to take in our diet, and we know that milk and milk products are source of calcium, and that is why it is important for growing children like you to have milk regularly. So, bone is having hard matrix compared to cartilage which has pliable matrix because it has chondrocytes. We know that bones are a specialized connective tissue. What is connective tissue? We all know. Any tissue which connects each and every part of the body, like blood is also connective tissue, bone is also a connective tissue. We, the humans, have total of 206 bones in our body. From the day you are born, you have 206 bones, and the smallest one is stapes, which we already know. To understand a skeletal system, we normally divide it into two major divisions, the axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. First, we will talk about axial skeleton. Axial skeleton, as the name indicates, it constitutes the main axis of the body. There are total of 80 bones which participate in the formation of axial skeleton, and the areas which are covered by a axial skeleton are the skull, the vertebral column, the ribs, and of course, the sternum, which is part of rib cage. These bones will make axial skeleton. Let us start discussion with skull. Skull is made up of total of 22 bones. There are cranial bones 8 in number, and there are facial bones 40 in number, which makes this 22. Now, cranial bones in skull, they are very hard protective covering. They are protecting the brain. The brain part where brain is lodged is covered by cranial bones. The facial bones are making part of face, and it is interesting to know that one U-shaped bone called hyoid is forming the lower jaw. That means our lower jaw is also part of skull bones, and you know the value of lower jaw. If you try to experience it, it is only lower jaw which moves, upper jaw does not move. You are speaking or singing or eating food, you are masticating food, you will imagine how it is happening. Only lower jaw is moving up and down, upper jaw is not moving at all. So, lower jaw, which is part of skull, has become movable in this case because that is need of our body, and it controls everything inside the buccal cavity because it is U shaped and it gives shape to our chin, and also it is movable. As I told you, there are 8 cranial bones which are giving protective covering to our brain, and also it has hyoid, which is lower jaw, I have already described. Then ear ossicles, 3 ear ossicles in each ear, they are also part of skull, malleus, incus and stapes. Now, this skull will articulate with vertebral column. You know, you have this head placed on your shoulder. After the head begins the vertebral column. So, head is placed on the vertebral column. It is not just placed loosely, it is placed with some special arrangement so that it remains in the position, and also you can move it right, left and up and down. Those movements are also possible because of special placement of skull onto the vertebral column, and that is achieved due to 2 occipital condyle on which the skull will rest onto the vertebral column. These are very delicate arrangements. We know that our neck is very delicate. It is holding the neck on the upper side, vertebral column on the lower side. In this diagram, you can see skull, you can see the frontal area, the parietal area, and the area which is covering the brain on the top, and also you can see the place of ear where you will find ear ossicles. And a special thing to watch here is the lower jaw, the hyoid, which is holding the teeth, and of course, it is movable. Near the area of eyes, you can see eye sockets, and also you are able to see very clearly the maxilla and maxillar bones. So, these arrangement of bones become very important for skull, because in skull area not only we are having brain which is to be protected, we are having many other organs like ear, like eye, like mouth, and also we have lower jaw, we have buccal cavity where we have teeth and the tongue. So, all these things are lodged within skull, and that is why skull becomes very important part in the axial skeleton. It is making the axis of the body, and it is the first important part in the axis of the body which keeps the balance all right for us. And the important part of axial skeleton is our vertebral column, the backbone. Backbone is important to keep us straight, and also you can see in the diagram here the initial part of the vertebral column where the skull or the head rests through occipital condyle. There are 26 small bones in the vertebral column, and these small bones are called vertebrae. Vertebra is singular, vertebrae plural. In each vertebra there is central canal. We can also call it neural canal. Through this runs the spinal cord. Now, children, try to relate 2 concepts together. Brain continues as a spinal cord through your backbone. Skull continues as vertebral column as backbone. These 2 things are running together. The nervous system running within the bone system. So, in the skull, cranium is covering the brain. In the backbone, the vertebral column is covering the spinal cord. Why it is so? Because brain tissue is soft and bone tissue is hard. Now, this soft tissue can be protected only by hard covering. So, nature has made such a beautiful arrangement that in our backbone there are so many bones, 26 in number, but they have a central canal through which the spinal cord runs or passes through very safely, and it remains safe. This is one advantage. The other advantage is because it is not one single bone. There are 26 small bones. So, we are able to bend or turn on one side or the other side. That flexibility is achieved by so many bones present one after another. Also, these vertebrae have special structures, so that movement of our body becomes very flexible. Even one vertebra, if it is displaced, the total movement of muscle and nerve in our body will be affected. Of course, the particular area which is being governed by this vertebra and the nervous connection or spinal area of that area, that will be affected badly, but otherwise the remaining areas will also be affected. So, this axis of our body is very important. It is lodging within it important parts of nervous system and important part of skeletal system, in this case axial system. You can see in this diagram the vertebrae arranged one after another. You can also see the neural canal. You can see the cervical curve, that is your neck. Then you can see thoracic curve, that is immediately after neck. Then you can see lumbar curve, which goes little in, and then the lowermost you can see sacral curve. So, it is curved in such a way, it is giving a particular shape to your back, to your body. We are now discussing vertebral column. This is another important part of axial skeleton and makes axis of the body after skull. As I told you, skull is placed on vertebral column through two occipital condi, and the vertebral column itself is made up of 26 small bones, which are called vertebrae plural and vertebra singular. Each vertebra has a central canal, which we can also call neural canal, through which will pass the spinal cord. At this point of time, children, I would like to remind you that in our nervous system, we have brain and the spinal cord. Both are soft tissues. In our skeleton, we have axial skeleton, which has skull and the backbone or vertebral column. This is hard tissue. The soft tissue is enclosed within the hard tissue, or in other words, the hard tissue is giving a protective covering to the soft tissue. We know how important it is for us. Our brain, which is very soft and very sensitive tissue, is covered by cranium or the skull. If it was not so, if brain was exposed all the time, then our brain could not function for more than few days. Similarly, the spinal cord, which is continuation of the brain in the backbone, is another important area of nervous system which regulates reflexes in our body. The movement of your limbs, your hands, your legs, and immediate reflexes are controlled by spinal cord. Again, it is important area and also it is soft tissue. It runs through the vertebral column, through those neural canals in all the vertebrae, so that it is protected well. So, nature has made very fine arrangement for our body tissues. And the advantage of this arrangement is that because bones are 26 in number, small bones, vertebrae, and they are arranged one after another like a bead in a thread. So, our back is flexible. We can move right or left, in front or back as much we want. That movement is possible for two reasons. First thing, flexibility provided by these bones and a spinal cord running through this bone, which is controlling the reflexes. Suppose you want to move your right hand, then the part of a spinal cord will give nervous control for this, and vertebrae of that area of the vertebral column will give movement as far as bones are concerned. So, any movement will be governed by nervous system and skeletal system. So, this peculiar arrangement of vertebral column fits into our body structure and also it allows us flexibility. To know more about it, we will look into this diagram. You can see the neck area where skull is placed. It is called cervical curve, which is your neck indeed. After that comes thoracic curve, which is a little bulge after neck, or you can say shoulder area. Then comes lumbar curve, which again depresses in to give a particular shape to the body, and then the last one is sacral curve. These curves also make body flexible. At this point, let me tell you one more important thing. The skull is resting on vertebral column through occipital condyle, and the first vertebra, that is called atlas. That means the atlas vertebra, which is the first vertebra of vertebral column, makes contact with the occipital condyle on which is resting the head or the skull. In this diagram, you can also see cervical vertebrae, the thoracic vertebrae. They are named after the area where they are located. Thorax region, thoracic vertebrae; lumbar area, lumbar vertebrae; sacral area, sacrum; and tail area, coccygeal. So, this is the distribution of vertebrae. Of course, vertebrae are 26 in number. They are named differently as per their presence in a particular area. We move on to the next slide. So, in vertebral column there are 26 vertebrae and there is a neural canal in the center through which spinal cord passes, and the first vertebrae is called atlas vertebrae, which articulates with occipital condyle, and the occipital condyle is the area where skull will articulate. So, skull articulates with occipital condyle and occipital condyle articulates with atlas vertebra, which is the first vertebra in the vertebral column, and the second vertebra is called axis vertebra, and then there are more, total 26 in number. Let us see their distribution. We are now discussing parts of vertebral column, or in other words, distribution of vertebrae in different areas of vertebral column. Cervical vertebrae are 7 in number. Then there are thoracic vertebrae, which are 12 in number. After that, lumbar vertebrae, they are 5. Coming to sacral, it is 1 but fused, and then there is coccygeal, again 1, and it is also fused. This is in the tail region. We can now very well understand the main functions of vertebral column. It protects the spinal cord, it supports the head, it gives strength to our back, it also gives provision for ribs attachment and the sternum, which will eventually make rib cage for us, and rib cage is important because it lodges heart and 2 lungs. In today's session, we started discussion with skeletal system and we discussed some part of axial skeleton which makes axis of the body. The axial skeleton is having skull, vertebral column, ribs and the sternum. We have discussed about skull and also vertebral column, different vertebrae and different areas of the vertebral column and their attachments with skull and the ribs. With this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you.